to interrupt you there, but the Bangladesh court's verdict on the alleged crimes against humanity committed during Sheikh Hasina's tenure is now out. What we're getting to know is that the former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been convicted. She has been found guilty. Remember, this has to do with the excesses committed during the students' crackdown last year. Aditya, now with me live. Aditya, just take us through what we're hearing from the court.
At this hour, former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been convicted of the charges against humanity by the tribunal in Dhaka. Of course, Sheikh Hasina, in an exclusive interview with NDTV just a few hours ago, had said that this is completely sham. This is not democracy. Of course, Awami League has been banned as well. In fact, Sheikh Hasina, in this exclusive interview, had gone on to say that Mohammad Yunus, the chief advisor, had links and alignment with terror groups and radicals in his own cabinet. So the big verdict coming, even as we break these details on NDTV right now, we are witnessing the reading out of the verdict at the ICT tribunal that is happening right now. If I can take you through what the tribunal is saying. Instead of listening to students, Hasina made derogatory comments and described them as Razakars. This is what the ICT tribunal is saying. It also observes that students had launched movement on July 1 demanding reforms in the quota system. Apart from that, we are also hearing that the tribunal says accused Hasina was ordered to be restrained from making contemptuous remarks by this tribunal. But she went on to give interviews. In fact, the final portion of the verdict is being read out even as we speak right now. We are waiting on the exact, the quantum of the verdict that will come, whether Sheikh Hasina will get a death sentence or a life sentence, or there will be a different kind of a verdict that really comes out. But these are breaking developments. First on NDTV, on a day when the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has broken her silence in an exclusive interview with the NDTV. Now the ICT tribunal giving out a big verdict. In fact, now I can take you with more details that are just trickling in. Tribunal says instead of listening to students, Hasina made derogatory comments and described them as Razakars. Hasina ordered to kill and eliminate students. So it's almost clear that the operative part of the verdict is left now. In a few minutes from now, we'll know what the operative part will be. It will be either death sentence or life sentence in most likelihood, because the ICT seems to have built a case, the Bangladesh government seems to have built a case against Sheikh Hasina in a way where she's being blamed for killing the students, where she's being blamed for ordering the killing of the students. This is massive. The former Prime Minister of Bangladesh about to be convicted in the ICT, where the Awami League says that this is an absolute sham of a trial, and this does not go with the principles of democracy.
So the sentencing is expected sometime now. Aditya, do stay with me because I also have Saurabh with me. Saurabh, just reading out some of the excerpts that we have from that special tribunal in Dhaka that has convicted the former Prime Minister. It goes on to say lethal weapons used to kill protesters. Hasina ordered to kill and eliminate students. Now this, Saurabh, will also lead to further tensions in Bangladesh. We're expecting protests to continue as well post the verdict. Tell us more about what you're hearing from the ground.
Well, yes, in fact, protests are likely to continue, and like Aditya was saying, Sheikh Hasina's Awami League has already called this a sham trial. In fact, she also spoke to Aditya in an exclusive interview, and this has been described as a kangaroo court by Sheikh Hasina and her party. However, what the tribunal and what I've been listening to from the tribunal's order is that they also seem to have gone by a lot of media reports and, of course, statements and witness statements. However, this was a situation in Bangladesh that was unfolding. It was a situation of violent protests, which began with somewhat as a protest against quotas, but soon turned into an anti-Hasina protest. And that's something that led to eventually Ganobhavan in Dhaka, which used to be the official residence of Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh at that time, being stormed by violent protesters with an intention to kill her. And of course, she made a last-minute escape, flying out of Ganobhavan in a helicopter to Tejgaon, and from there, of course, in that military aircraft to India. And that, of course, she came to India. But, in this, what the tribunal seems to be saying is that Hasina didn't pay heed to the demands of the protesters. However, there is, of course, also statements from Sheikh Hasina at that time saying, that this is a court order. Remember that court order on really what happened as far as the quota is concerned and what is this quota and who are Razakars. That will, of course, need a little bit of history explanation. Razakars are people who sided with the Pakistanis in 1971 during the Liberation War. And, Mukti Jodhas are the ones who fought for Bangladesh's freedom. And at that time, of course, this had become, a sort of war between Mukti Jodhas and Razakars. And Razakars are seen as people who betrayed the cause of Bangladesh. And, that is something that the ICT seems to have found her guilty of, at least as far as the observations that have been announced so far go. And the ICT is, of course, pronouncing its verdict as we speak.
And the ICT, they're pronouncing its verdict. We have the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, convicted Sheikh Hasina. Aditya still with me. Aditya, you have spoken with Sheikh Hasina. There's been this exclusive conversation you've had with her. And in that conversation, if I'm not mistaken, she was expecting this, what we're seeing on our screens, which is a conviction. And she's also obviously gone on to say that there is a witch hunt of sorts against her. But at a time like this, we're also seeing large screens that have been set up in Dhaka by the Ministry of Cultural Affairs. You have the Awami League that's also called for a shutdown. Take us through all these developments.
Well, over the last 24 to 48 hours, there have been continuous violence and clashes that have been reported in Dhaka and several other cities. We've seen the verdict now being read out. The operative part is left, but Sheikh Hasina has been convicted of crimes against humanity. In fact, the chief prosecutor says that Hasina was the mastermind and the principal architect behind the alleged atrocities committed during last year's nationwide protest. On a day when Sheikh Hasina has given an exclusive interview to NDTV, now the conviction happening. This was all but, not surprising really. This was about to happen. This was imminent. It was almost clear with the kind of security arrangements that have been made, the preparations by the Mohammad Yunus interim government in Bangladesh, that they were preparing ground for such a verdict to be read out. She has been convicted, but now it remains to be seen whether she has been convicted for life or will she be given a death sentence. In this particular case, of course, we know since 5th August 2024, Sheikh Hasina has taken refuge in New Delhi at a secret house in the central part of the national capital. She has been residing here safe and sound. India gave her shelter, but the question right now, will she be able to return to Bangladesh in future? Will she be able to fight elections free and fair in future? Because Mohammad Yunus just a few days ago had announced national elections in Bangladesh and side-by-side referendum as well that will be taking place in February 2026. But the big development at this hour is the big verdict coming out from Dhaka, where we are putting out exclusive details where Sheikh Hasina has been convicted on the entire so-called modus operandi to kill the students. That's the case that was built against her over the last many months. The ICT tribunal saying that it was Sheikh Hasina Indet who was the principal architect of the entire firing that happened against the students-led protest in Dhaka. So that's the big development coming at this hour. The derogatory comments from Sheikh Hasina also being described and quoted inside the court. In fact, a lot of media reports, just like Saurabh was pointing out, have been quoted as well. Where is the evidence? That's the big question. And why not give her freedom if Mohammad Yunus really believes in democracy? These were the kind of comments that came in from Sheikh Hasina when she spoke to NDTV earlier in the day.